side of the arena for today's Paul Silva open workout, the fight they said Jake Paul would never take. I've already won everything I've done.
You can like Jake Paul or you cannot like Jake Paul. What you cannot say is he's phoning it in.
There's tremendous pressure on Jake.
Does beating Anderson Silva give you the respect that he deserves?
100%, and I have more than what it takes. I'm trying to get that KO of the year, part 2.
That's why I rode in on the horse.
This one's different because this is a new opponent, but we're ready to go.
He's going to have to bring a whole lot of stuff to get me to.
That will kick off the main card Saturday night on Showtime pay-per-view. Involves a very familiar face in the world of mixed martial arts, former UFC fighter, Bellator fighter. He's fought on one of these MVP fights before. He's Chris Avila, representing the Nick Diaz Academy, going up against Dr. Mike Warshawski, who's a social media sensation. He's one of the best guys on the internet. Do we have Dr. Mike and Chris Avila coming up? Here they are. I mean, look at this guy right here. Once voted the sex doctor on the planet, Dr. Mike, who is my only source for all things medicine and fighting as well, won his amateur debut against the great iDubbbz back in May. And there's Chris Avila representing NDA. Then we'll move along to another fight that I don't know if we ever thought would come to fruition, but here we are. We're about to see something very interesting and something very unique. It's Uriah Hall, the former UFC fighter, the former Ultimate Fighter finalist, the former middleweight contender, a man who has a win over the likes of Anderson Silva, among many others. The pride of Queens, New York, going up against one of the best running backs of the last decade, most notably for the Pittsburgh Steelers, coming off his knockout win over Adrian Peterson, Le'Veon Bell, Uriah Hall. They'll be meeting the second fight on the main card. Now I talked about the hardcore boxing fans card. Cleveland, Ohio, going up against Alexandro. To high action. Will be competing on Alexandro Santiago, the hottest prospects in the sport of boxing. He is just 18 years young. He is undefeated. He's a man who, a long time ago, Floyd Money Mayweather said, that guy is the future. Well, it appears as though Jake Paul and his team at MVP agree, because he's the first prospect signed to MVP. He is Ashton H2O Silva going up against the veteran Braulio Rodriguez of the Dominican Republic. H2O and Braulio Rodriguez. Can't wait for that fight. And of course, the big one, the headliner, the main event. It's the old school versus the new school. It's one of the greatest of mixed martial arts going up against the problem child. It's an unbelievable spectacle, and I don't think anyone really knows how it's going to go down. The good thing is, on Saturday, we will get the answer to that question. It is Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. Jake Paul, there he is, Anderson Silva. And Jake Paul. Hello, Anderson, good to see you. And the great Jake Paul. Good to see you as well, Jake. Looking dapper as always. So here they are, all individuals. I know you all have a lot of questions for them as well. I have a lot of questions for them as well. I'm usually sitting right over there, so I can't wait to see how this final press conference goes down. But before we get to everything, let us hear from the man who made all of this possible, the president of Showtime Sports, Mr. Steven Espinoza.
Thank you, Ariel. First, I'd like to acknowledge a couple of very special people here today. In my career, I've been fortunate enough to work with some of the all-time greats, Floyd Mayweather, Mike Tyson, Canelo Alvarez, many others. But I'd be lying if I say I wasn't honored and really impressed at this special opportunity. An honor to be working with two of the all-time greats in MMA. Obviously, in the main event, Anderson Silva. It's a pleasure to welcome him to Showtime. And also as part of our broadcast, George St. Pierre, one of our commentators specially added for this show. And as a lifelong combat sports fan, it is an honor to have two of these all-time greats, two of the best athletes in the sport, and two of the really founders, the people who put MMA on the map worldwide. So it's a pleasure to have you here. As I've said, I've been a lifelong boxing fan. I've been in the sport working for almost 25 years. I've seen a lot of things, a lot of unusual things, a lot of unexpected things, but I never would have predicted an event like this. Jake Paul, 5-0, 4 KOs, headlining his third pay-per-view on Showtime pay-per-view, his fourth pay-per-view overall. He was the 2021 Breakout Fighter of the Year from Sports Illustrated, highlight reel knockouts, bringing a new fan base to the sport of boxing, facing Anderson Silva, one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time. People ask all the time, it's probably the question that I get asked most about these events, why? Why Jake? Why put 35 years of credibility in the sport into this event? Well, for those of you who've spent any time with Jake, you will see that he's demonstrated a dedication to the sport, the outside of the deal, that he would be taking on a tougher challenge with each successive fight. And that's exactly what he's doing. He had 2 attempts to face an established professional boxer, which through no fault of his own, those didn't happen. And now he's taking on really his childhood idol, his toughest test of his career. And I may be giving away his secret, but to tell you the truth, there are some on Jake's team who advised him not to take.
Let's get this party started. Just have a couple questions. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. Jake, good to see you. It was nice to squash the beef earlier. I like the sunglasses and the whole look.
Thank you.
Are you trying to take the microphone away? What's
I
going
don't know, because they're in weird positions, right? Like you can't.
You can lift it up if you
can
want.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You can hear me like this? Yeah. All right.
Has fought them all. He has won so many fights. Greatest start to a UFC career ever, and that record still stands. Is it possible that you, at just 5-0, actually has more pressure on his shoulders than Anderson Silva, the guy who's crossing over to fight the youngster, but there's so much more that you want to accomplish in this sport? I'm wondering if you actually feel like you have more pressure on your shoulders.
For sure, definitely. Just being the A side and that alone, and the amount of shit I talk to people, I think the whole MMA community is waiting for me to lose. They want me to lose, and yeah, I just have so many more. Big ideas and big plans in this sport, and I plan on being here forever. So this is the start of that, and yeah, the pressure's on. I'm the young guy, and man, he's really, really good. So, and has more experience. He has the weight, he has the height, he has the reach. So really, all the odds are stacked against me.
Anderson, good to see you. Stephen mentioned that there are some people actually on Jake's team who thought, this is crazy. What are you doing? It's one thing to fight the guys you've fought in the past, but Anderson's a different level of striker, and you're actually the only one that he has fought that has a history in boxing. Do you agree with those people? Do you think this man is crazy for fighting you?
Well, for you come to fight this man of the combat sport, you a little crazy. I'm a little crazy too.
But you enjoy that kind of craziness, I would imagine.
Absolutely. This is not for everybody. Everybody here, these guys here is special guys. And for sure, everybody here is a little crazy.
When you watch his training footage, Jake, when you see him on the mitts yesterday at the open workouts, this is a different level of striking, right? Different level of speed. What goes through your mind?
Yeah, very, very fast, very rangy, very technical, good defense, good movement. I'll have to be perfect on Saturday night, and I know I'm capable of doing that, but it is going to be a very, very tough test, and I'm ready for war. And I think, skill aside, it might come down to who wants it more, and I believe that is me.
Do you agree with that, Anderson? Do you think he wants it more than you?
That's the competition, everything is possible, but I training hard for make a good show for everybody.
One last one from me to you. We've seen you on so many big stages before, the Rich Franklin fights, the Forrest Griffin fights, Damian Maia, and later on the great fights that you had. I'm wondering, a win over Jake Paul, considering where you're at in your life, in your career, in this new sport, newish sport now for you, where would you rank this accomplishment? If you win on Saturday, where would you put that amidst all the great things that you've accomplished in your fighting career?
Well, I think is a very special for me. But I believe in after that I go to Dubai to fight Jiu-Jitsu, and I think is a challenge come to everybody here, and I come the new challenge for Jake too, and I'm feel this come very special for everybody here, you know.
This guy's not slowing down. He's already got his next fight booked. He's going to Dubai. I mean, geez, Louise, 47? Look like 27, Anderson. Look fantastic.
I mean,
You working with Dr. Mike over there for this some of that?
I try to do my best, you know, because I love fighting. I love my job, and now I'm free to do everything I like to do, you know. And I talk to my jiu-jitsu coach in Dubai, Humble Members, in Abu Dhabi, and I go to the tournament, jiu-jitsu tournament with the key.
C-level King, motivated BJ, free Anderson, a very dangerous fighter. I think we're starting to learn that. All right, let's go to the media for some questions here. Got a microphone right over there. If you don't mind, I've always wanted to say this. If you don't mind, you know, saying where you're from, your outlet, I think that's very efficient.
Andreas here with the Sporting News. Jake, this question is for you because you're not just a fighter, you're also a promoter. We've seen a fourth quarter that didn't get Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury. We're not getting Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis, but we are getting Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. What is your message out there to the boxing world for the fans that want to see the biggest fights being made? It seems like you're continuing to make them.
Yeah, get these fights done. Stop shooting yourself in the foot. Stop being greedy. Give people what they want. You don't look at every term in the contract and try to change it. Just fucking fight. You spar every day. Why not get paid fucking tens of millions of dollars to do it in front of people? They're very scared to risk their undefeated records, but boxing needs these big fights. Don't let your manager stop you. Don't let your promoter stop you. You got to be in control.
Question for Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon, 5 years ago I told you that you'd be fighting an MMA fighter on the undercard of one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time, and a social media maven, and a doctor coming off of a knockout of an NFL player. What would you have told me?
I'd have said you were wild. I'd have said you're a wild man. You know, I didn't obviously plan for that to, you know, happen at that time 5-6 years ago, but you know, over the course of my NFL career, me picking up boxing as extra cardio, I just fell in love with it, you know, and then, you know, once I started sparring and, you know, actually competing with other, you know, fighters and things like that, I knew this is what I wanted to do.
Keith Heidig, BoxingSync.com. My question is for Antonio Nieves. Antonio, can you put into words what it's like to finally get this rematch with Santiago and also to get it on this type of platform?
You know, when we fought 6 years ago, he was a last-minute opponent to the card that we were fighting on, so I didn't know much of it. And the fight came into a draw. So now being here in this big event with Jake Paul from my hometown, Cleveland, Ohio, you know, it means a lot to me because we're definitely we already know what he does. He's not a last-minute opponent, so it's gonna be a better fight, and we're looking for the victory.
Love that Keith asked Antonio question. That's the hardcore boxing community. Well done, Keith. Who's up next?
Question for Uriah. Danny Segura with MMA Junkie. Uriah, you're obviously a big favorite going into this fight. You have way more combat experience than your opponent. Do you feel any pressure that you have to do something dominant, that there's nothing but domination expected from you?
This is
you know, fight is a fight. You know, it changes when you go out there. Sometimes you have to adjust. We're both athletes at the end of the day. I know he's a powerful dude. I know he's confident. You can't really focus on those outside negative affirmations. You got to stay present. That's what I've learned from my experience doing this. I got to be present, and I'm just looking forward to have some fun. He's good. It's a challenge for me. It's a step up. It's outside my comfort zone, and I love that. I love a challenge.
Great to see you back, Uriah. Welcome back.
Jake, North Frauenheim, 15 rounds. Welcome to Arizona, and welcome to David Benavides' neighborhood. My question is, I noticed that you mentioned Benavides yesterday or sometime this week as a fighter, as your favorite fighter, and somebody that you would like to promote. I think he's tied to a promoter now, but what if he said, let's fight?
Me and David? Man, I'm not ready for a world champion at his caliber yet. But I don't know, I haven't thought about that possibility.
I mean, could you envision that someday?
I don't know, I think...
I mean, he can't find anybody to fight. Nobody will fight.
We're gonna have to keep looking.
Thanks.
Radio Rock here. Jake, this morning you posted the problem child activated, and we've seen you talk about your meditation. This different kind of Jake Paul who's coming up. What is the difference between, if this is an alter ego, this alter ego, the problem child, and the Jake Paul that you are on a normal basis?
Yeah, I think when you get into that ring, you gotta be ruthless, savage. You gotta, be willing to do whatever it takes going through those darkest moments in the ring. You have to be a killer, or you will be killed. And so that's where the problem child comes from. I'm a problem for anyone that's in the ring with me. And I can put you out at any second. I don't give a fuck. I'm a different person. I don't care about consequences when I'm in that alter ego. And I come alive. I come alive when I'm in that ring. And it's not, it's not Jake, it's someone else that I tap into.
And Anderson, you're referred to as the GOAT of UFC. Most people agree with that. Do you accept that this fight goes against your legacy, and that if you are beat on Saturday night, that counts against you as the GOAT and your legacy as a fighter?
Wow, I don't believe that affects nothing in my legacy, in my journey in this combat sport. I believe I try to do my best to give something for the new generation, and Jake and I put on two big generations together, and people think, oh, this affect my legacy or affect the Jake legacy, but I don't believe that, because it's about passion, it's about love,
Hi, Penny Buffington from MMA Fight Coverage. Anderson, I wanted to ask you if the payout for this is comparable to what you were making in the UFC, or is it much higher? And assuming that it is much higher, would you have taken this fight if it wasn't the payout amount? Would you have taken the fight just because you're fighting Jake Paul, or are you fighting for the money?
Wow. So let me tell you something. Everybody asks me about that situation, but I don't have a problem to talking about that. And when I start fighting UFC, I make good contract. And every single fight, every single moment, I change my contract, I change everything. And I make good money. I don't have crazy life, and that's I save my money, and I make a lot of money in UFC. Of course, I can't say that my last fight in Mexico, I make more money than my two last fight in UFC.
I think you spent all your money on your toys. I saw that. It's a lot of toys,
know,
Anderson.
Yeah, I buy toys.
It's a lot of toys.
Yeah, a lot of toys.
This is the Schmo with the Schmo Zone. Question for the problem child, Jake Paul. You said there's people within your team that advised you against taking this fight. So at what point during training camp do you feel like you won those naysayers over?
I would say within like 2 weeks. I don't know. Is Logan here? What? You were like, are you sure you want to do this? And then now you probably think I'm going to win, right?
Yeah. Anderson, I love you.
I love you too, buddy. No, definitely not. Definitely not.
I'm positive
No. You see the movie Hockey and Apollo? You see that when the guy's training in the last scene in the movie, they both give the punch, but you never know who's the winner. Maybe next.
Sorry, my brother.
No.
It only ends one way. So I love you, but to answer your question, Jake, about 2 months ago was when I became certain the fight was going to end the same as it always does. Again, Anderson, I love you, but you're going to be face down, horizontal.
Sir, can you please identify yourself? What's your outfit? Anderson, you need to join. This is what needs to happen now.
But Logan was like, yo, are you sure you want to do this? It's Anderson Silva.
Anderson needs to join the bloodline after all of that smack talk and go to
That's
Saudi
crazy
Arabia.
because everybody asking the same. You sure you go do that? He's a Jake Paul. You sure? He's beating a lot of guys in UFC. You think? Yeah, I say yes. I think I'm ready for that. You know, he's younger than me, but I'm a superhero.
And just one last question is for you.
For the first time ever, like Logan talked more shit to my opponent than I ever did.
I love you, man. I love you.
Spider, future UFC Hall of Famer, got one question for you. GSP, he's added to this broadcast. We never got to see the legendary matchup in MMA. Any chance you get through Jake Paul, you will campaign to face GSP inside a boxing ring?
Wow, I think that's good. You know, that's wow. First of all, you need to check it out. The GSP is out the contract with UFC.
Oh.
And because I think GSP can come and do something special, the same us, you know.
Two great Canadians on the broadcast, Mauro Ranallo and George St. Pierre. How about that?
I love it. I love
Amazing.
it. You know, it's so amazing.
Incredible. Shout out to Canada. Where else are we? There we go.
This one's for Braulio, Eddie Law, Case That Press. The Dominican Republic's going to be watching this fight. It's everywhere. What does it feel like to be on a card this big with headliners such as Jake and Anderson, and to be on there and on pay-per-view and everything?
Bueno, Braulio, ¿cómo se siente el estar en una cartelera de este calibre con todos estos peleadores y por Showtime? ¿Cómo te sentís de cara a esta gran pelea?
Primeramente quiero darle las gracias a Dios y a ustedes por su apoyo, a Jeff Paul, uno de mis peleadores favoritos. Le doy las gracias a él por darme la oportunidad de estar compitiendo en su show. Mi madre también es admiradora de Jeff Paul y me siento muy bien, gracias a Dios, aquí para dar buen espectáculo.
First of all, I want to thank both Showtime and Jake Paul for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this great card. And you know, Jake, my mom is a fan of yours, so we think that's awesome. And you know, I would like to thank God also for being able to give me this opportunity, and I'm going to give the fans a show, I promise you that.
And then for Alejandro Santiago, real quick.
Wait, Ashton, are you gonna knock him out?
Of course.
I already know. I'm sorry that your mom's not gonna like MVP after this.
Bueno, dice que te va a noquear. ¿Vos qué le respondes a eso?
No tengo nada que responder, soy un peleador experimentado, le deseo que gane el mejor. Después de la derrota con Ryan García, he madurado, no tiene que ser humilde y tratar de hacer la cosa bien para que todo le salga bien.
Look, to what he said about knocking me out, of course, yeah, like I'm not gonna really merit that because I know what I'm capable of, and I'm gonna do my best and show you guys that I'm well up to the challenge on Saturday night.
Alejandro, this time, this fight, you had a full camp. It's not less man fight. What's going to be different this time around?
Bueno, esta vez tuviste un entrenamiento a pleno para esta pelea. ¿Qué va a ser diferente para esta pelea?
Va a ser diferente. Yo estuve en un campamento hace 4 meses cuando la pelea se me canceló y de ahí me mandaron a Dominicana porque la pusieron para octubre, pero gracias a Dios me siento en perfectas condiciones. Le digo a Anderson Silva que lo respeto mucho, es tremendo boxeador, un muchacho joven. Él va con un boxeador bueno, yo soy bueno, gracias a Dios. No, vuelvo y les repito, no vean la derrota de Herian García, vean toda la victoria que yo tengo antes de Herian García. He estado en los clasificatorios mejores 10 del mundo de mi peso. Y será tremenda batalla, será tremenda batalla. He aprendido mucho, estoy humildemente y le doy gracias a Dios por esta oportunidad y las cosas no son como él piensa, la cosa va a ser diferente en el ring.
I can tell you things are going to be so much different than when I was fighting against Ryan Garcia. I had a full training camp, 4 months, and I'm gonna be ready to redeem myself. That's my goal, because I feel like this time around I did everything I had to do to be able to prepare for this fight and to show the people that the Ryan Garcia fight was an outlier, that the real fight is about to come up.
This is for Santiago. This time around, obviously, same question, but you have a full fight camp. It's not a last-second fight. And then, in addition to that, what's it like to fight and be, viewed by the entire country of Mexico to, watch you fight?
Bueno, tus sensaciones para Alexandro, para esta pelea que va a ser vista por todo el mundo, y además, ¿qué se siente representar a México en este gran escenario?
Muy agradecido, contento y motivado de formar parte de esta cartelera, y pues a demostrar de qué estoy hecho. Gracias a Dios vamos a tener un desempate que ya tuve con Nieves, y pues vengo muy bien preparado y contento de representar a México y de mostrarles quién soy.
I couldn't be more thrilled to represent Mexico. I'm so excited, and I'm glad that I'm able to have this grudge match to decide who of the two of us is truly better. I can promise you that I'm going to represent Mexico with all I have, and this fight is going to be great. I can guarantee you that.
If I could just jump in real quickly, Jake mentioned that his team said that he was crazy initially, or I guess it was Logan who said that for taking this fight against Anderson Silva. I was thinking of Dr. Mike. Did your team say the same when you said that you were going to fight a guy with almost 20 MMA fights and a bunch of boxing fights on his record?
I think when I told that to my patients, my doctor colleagues, they were considering admitting me to the psych ward. But once they saw my passion for the sport, the reason why I fell in love with boxing, as I said in earlier interviews, 2010 was a rough year where I lost both of my grandparents and my mother. It was a dark time, and boxing allowed me an escape from that dark time. For the last 10 years, I've been practicing boxing as a hobby, as a way of fitness, and over the last year and a half, I've committed to the sport, sparring, training, had my first sold-out event in Tampa, Florida, 10,000 people, over 100,000 pay-per-view buys as the main event. Won every single round on the judges' scorecards, and I'm looking to do even better on this event.
And he's a very humble guy. It is worth noting, shout out to Dr. Mike, worth noting that he is donating his entire purse to the Boys and Girls Club of Harlem, right? That's correct? The entire thing, 100%. So shout out to Dr. Mike.
Jack from The Sun. I've got a question for Ashton. Ashton, at the moment we've got a lot of young upcoming American stars in the sport, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, Stifson, list goes on. How quickly in terms of years or fights do you believe it will be until you're sort of mentioned alongside those names?
I'm honestly not too sure, but I feel like it will be in the next 2 to 3 years. I mean, look where I'm at right now. My 8th fight, we're co-main event with Jake Paul. The rest of my team kind of believe that I feel like in the next 2 years that we'll be up there fighting, for a belt or somewhere, be a contender for one.
And what is it that separates you from the rest of the pack?
From what?
What separates you from the rest of the up-and-coming talent?
I mean, because I'm H2O, I feel like it's kind of self-explanatory.
Splash. I believe the nickname originally comes from Bruce Lee, right? Because you flow like water out there?
Yeah.
Anderson Silva.
Perfect record, too.
Yeah.
Not a lot of those guys in that weight division are getting knockouts.
Cool. That's a cool nickname, right? Like Bruce Lee, H2O is his nickname.
Yeah.
Bellator or UFC for me, and yeah, I'm taking it. Just taking it as it is.
And you probably know better than anyone, as part of Nick, you see Nate Diaz fighting that man right there one day. Jake Paul, you see him getting in here in the box.
It's up to him, you know what I mean? Ask the wrong guy.
Thank you.
I can't help myself. Part of the theme of your last few fights has been bets, Jake. I'm just wondering if this time around, are we going to do that, or?
I have a bet.
You do?
I have a bet.
Wow.
I have a bet for you, Anderson.
For Anderson, okay.
All right. It's a good one. It's a good one. No. All right. So look, if you win, I'll give you something that you probably want.
Okay, you start again. No tattoos.
No. No, if you win, I will fight you in an MMA fight.
Whoa! You're so smart because I don't fight MMA anymore. You're so. Kickboxing, right?
Kickboxing. But if I win, me and you come together, better pay and better healthcare. You become the interim president, and we unite to help these fighters once and for all.
Deal.
Let's go.
That's official. And I had no idea. That's huge. So again, if you lose him in a kickboxing match, you're sure about this? Before we make it 100%, kickboxing, not MMA?
No, MMA. No, it's too hard.
It's too hard, so kickboxing.
Kickboxing.
Kickboxing, and if you win, he is going to help you start essentially an MMA Fighters Association, a UFC Fighters Association.
Correct.
Not UFC Fighters Association, but MMA Association for help
All fighters.
all MMA fighters.
All fighters to help them get increased fighter pay and long-term health care.
Wow, you're down with that?
Yeah, deal.
Dr. Mike's going to jump in too. You're going to be a part of the.
You guys need a medical commissioner, yeah.
Perfect.
No, and we.
And God said it's one begotten Son to lead the wild into the ways. Follow me. Keep my flesh in my flesh. Come with me. Hail Mary, run.
All right, let's kick this off. First fight on the main card. Former UFC fighter, Bellator fighter, MMA veteran, Stockton's finest, Chris Avila, going up against Dr. Mike Warshawski. Here we are, kicking off the main card.
Let's go, Dr. Mike!
Stockton, Chris Avila. All right, let's keep things going here. We got the former UFC fighter, Ultimate Fighter finalist, middleweight contender Uriah Hall, the pride of Queens, New York, going up against the former Pittsburgh Steeler, one of the best running backs of the last decade, also a former New York Jet. It's New York versus New York, Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell, Uriah Hall. Bell coming off his knockout of Adrian Peterson a little over a month ago. Here he is in his pro debut against a man who has been competing for 2 decades in mixed martial arts, now crossing over to the sweet science. We keep things rolling along here, and we say hello to 2 men who know each other very well. They fought back in 2016 to a split draw on Showbox, the pride of Cleveland and Puerto Rico, Antonio Nieves going up against Alexandro Santiago. It's Puerto Rico versus Mexico in a rematch 6 years in the making. Two great bantamweights going toe-to-toe for the hardcore boxing community. It's Antonio Nieves versus Alejandro Santiago 2. All right, we keep things rolling along here. We say hello to one of the brightest young stars in boxing, just 18 years young, a perfect 7-0, the first prospect signed by MVP. We say hello to Ashton H2O Silva. And we say hello one more time to his opponent, Braulio Rodriguez. They're facing off. The co-headliner, El Chavo Braulio Rodriguez, representing the Dominican Republic, going up against Ashton H2O Silva. Ashton H2O Silva, remember the name, fighting on his biggest stage yet. One of the brightest prospects in boxing, facing his toughest test in the Dominican Republic's Braulio Rodriguez. And now time for the headliner, the one you're here for. It's the undefeated, the problem child, the pride of Cleveland, the social media sensation, the one and only Jake Paul versus the greatest middleweight champion in the history of the UFC, one of the greatest fighters in the history of mixed martial arts, the man who shocked the boxing world when he fought Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and beat him last year, the one and only, the inimitable Anderson Silva. It's the new school versus the old school. It's the MMA legend against the social media legend. It's Anderson Silva versus Jake Paul, and the stakes have been raised. You heard it moments ago. There is an actual belt on the line between these two guys. There's a belt and a bet. And now we'll say hello one more time, one final time, to all of the 10 fighters competing on this card. Main card starts at 9 p.m. Pacific. Excuse me, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on Showtime pay-per-view. 10 fighters competing on this pay-per-view card this Saturday from the Desert Diamond Arena here in beautiful Glendale, Arizona. Co-produced by MVP and Showtime Sports, live on Showtime pay-per-view. Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. Thank you so much to all the fighters. Thank you to everyone involved. Thank you to the media. Thank you for watching all around the world. We send it over to my good friends Luke Thomas and Brian Campbell of Morning Combat. Guys?
You guys got good. Sit right here. Also, I want that. I was trying to
Do you guys want anything for our undercard fighters on this side?
Do you need the full wide version?
Right around here?
Do you guys want to I have it right here. Okay. You can just use the version from Gabby right here.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, I have it.
Yeah. Both?
Do you want me to just e-text it, the link, or email it?
Email me. Thank you.
Fighters available now. Chris. You got any fighters over there available? I got these guys.
I'm gonna take the B-side guys here, the A-side guys here.
So all media wants fighters. Come to the stage. Media that wants fighters.
Sean, do you need a reason to talk into the mic?
Shot where?
What? Afterwards, hold on, I have a question.
The problem child, Jake Paul. I'm going crazy.
After you jumped out, talk to us. Don't shade.
I'm not even gonna lie, 1,000.
1,000? How much to end?
This one was like 45,000. I'm not even gonna lie, this one's like 10,000.
10,000? Okay, I see the chain. How many chains, homeboy?
This was like 400,000. 400,000, I swear to God.
How much the jacket?
8,500. 8,000.
I see the watch. How much the watch?
Oh, yeah, the
Jacob. How much the Jacob?
A couple million.
A couple million?
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna hold you.
You're not gonna hold me?
I'm not even gonna hold you, bro.
Okay, I see the bracelet. How much the bracelet?
850,000.
850,000?
Yeah, I swear to God. I swear to God.
How much the pin? How much the pin?
800,000.
And I see like cake. How much the cake?
Yeah. 9 million.
9 million?
For real, bro.
I'm
not even gonna hold you, bro.
You're not gonna hold me?
No. Sorry, bro.
That was good. No one ever did that before.
Just lying too about all
What the fuck, man? 800,000? What the hell? Ashton? Yeah, we're Ashton.
You're gonna do it now?
What?
Do it now?
Yeah.
You guys ready for
Jake, why do you think Spence versus Crawford couldn't go together?
You can do whatever you want, guy. You got like 10 trillion on you.
You can stand.
You got a little bit too much money. Yeah.
Jake, you
Jake,
mentioned
that bet came out of nowhere.
boxing.
That bet came out of nowhere, my man. Explain to me where you're thinking with that.
Man, it just needs to be done. It needs to be done. We need to work towards that. And the fighters need to band together, and Anderson's the perfect guy, right? He's all of our idols, all the fighters' idols. So he could be a very powerful figure, and this type of thing just needs to happen for fighters.
Were you surprised he said yes?
I was surprised at how fast he said yes, you know, and I guess that just goes to show like how much he knows that this needs to happen as well. But it's just exciting. So now I have even more motivation to win because I really want to get that done.
And I'm sure you also don't want to kickbox him.
I don't want to fucking no, absolutely not.
When did you think of that? Like, when did you come to that idea for the bet?
Since signing up to fight with him, I've thought that he would be a great figurehead to help with fighters banding together. And I've always just had conversations about this, and we thought of GSP, and really we need everybody. It's not just like a couple fighters who are going to be able to pull this off. But he's a legend, right? He's one of the most respected ever, and that's important, right? Because I think a lot of fighters have animosity towards me, so they might not listen to me. So I need help in getting this done.
He was very specific that he wants to do all MMA and not just UFC fighters. I mean, logistically, how do you think something like that could be executed?
I think it should be all MMA and then all boxing as well. It should just help all fighters because that's truly what's needed. But I think we'll start with MMA first.
Hey Jake, I had two questions. Just one in regards, you mentioned about fights not being made. Obviously, I'm sure you wanted to see Spence and Crawford in that fight getting in. Was that also one of the unfortunate things that you were talking about, that boxing isn't getting done?
Yeah, no, it sucks, and it sucks for the fans. The fans are the ones that get hurt, and it's bad. This is why the sport has gone to bad places before. It's gone to scary moments where you think the sport's gonna end up dying out because big fights like this aren't happening. Like why didn't we get Fury Joshua? There's just so many instances where big fights should be made and they're just not. And I don't know what it is, and no one will ever know. And that's what's frustrating. People just say it was him, it was them, it was this, it was that promoter, it was the rights, blah, 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 and you never really actually know the truth. So that's why I commend the UFC actually, is getting those big fights to happen and making those mandatory fights. And that's why they've had so much success.
And my second question is, I spoke with Deji not too long ago, and he put you as the pound for pound on his list for the crossover boxing. But he's going to be facing Floyd Mayweather. You face Deji. I just wanted to just get your thoughts on that.
I mean, Deji has a lot of heart, man, but, it's just a different beast in there with Floyd Mayweather. My brother had a power advantage, a speed advantage, a height advantage. Deji's really outnumbered all the way around the board.
Jake, you said Dana White has done everything in his power to sabotage this event. What exactly has Dana done?
Man, the list goes on, and some of it I can't even speak on. But he's been sending cease and desist for my content promoting this fight, and just doing things behind the scenes that are really shady. And we're just finding out more and more stuff as the promotion goes on. I'm sure I'll speak on it more at a later date.
Why is he so preoccupied with you, do you believe?
I think it's because I'm the number one figurehead that is exposing his business model and how much of a shark he is and how poorly he treats his fighters. And he said I wouldn't fight Anderson Silva, who's one of UFC's greats. And now here I am fighting him, and he largely in part promoted that. He's the one that, he's the reason why I took this fight, is to prove him wrong and to shut him the hell up.
Are you aware that he banned a friend of yours from coming to events because you came along as...
Yeah, he banned me too.
But are you aware that he banned your friend?
Yeah, he banned all of them that came together. So he's just he's doing anything he can to stop me and my friends, I guess.
Jake,
when you say he sent
cease and desist, is that just the Anderson footage or what? You anymore at his press conferences?
Yes, that, and he's also telling reporters, like you said, not to talk about me because he doesn't want my fights to be big. He wants to be the only cash cow in town. He wants to run the fight game, and I'm a threat to him being able to do that.
Do you think he'll mention you after this fight, win or lose, being that...
I mean, I think the media will bring it up, and then he'll just go, stop asking me fucking questions about this guy.
I mean, do you think George being a part of this whole promotion and the broadcast, do you think the Fighters Union would be something that you'd be able to get him into as well?
For sure, and I think, George has tried this in the past, and we need all the help we can get, and people will need to be selfless and use their platforms to create this and to make it an amazing thing that is forever. This is not just a 10-year thing. This is not just a couple years. This is something that could stand forever.
Jake, with the changes going on in boxing, But with you being such a phenomenon and a cash cow in your own right, with there being no major sanctioning belts on the line, do you think that your problem with a lot of the sanctioning bodies and the other people is you represent change in boxing? Like the belts don't matter as much.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's one of the problems for sure. And that, like, there's so many different types of champions and regional, and there needs to be, I mean, there's not going to be, but there needs to be one belt. I mean, that would be ideal. So, I mean, that's one of the many problems there are in the sport of boxing for sure.
Jake, at the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, I got a chance to sit down and talk to Mauricio Suleiman, and I mentioned an idea to him, and I'm going to float it to you as well, about like a legacy fund. A lot of these champions that have held these big sanctioning bodies belts are heralded, but they're not receiving any monthly compensation for the acts that they've done, like some sort of a pension. Would you be in support of something like that for them to stay relevant in boxing?
For sure. And that goes back to the United Fighters Association is things like these fighters being covered for retirement for all the amazing things that they have done for the sport, and in damn near all the other leagues. These athletes get some sort of pension or retirement if they play for a certain amount of time. So for sure, the champions who are improving the sport should be able to retire and not have to worry about whatever it is that they're going to do.
You mentioned that Dana White has sort of been trying to sabotage this event. Has it been just like minor headaches, or have you guys have to like put out some big fires?
There's been some big fires. I can't really talk about it, but I'm sure the truth always comes out.
Jake, how much concern do you have? Dana White's, a title in this game, right? And you say he feels threatened. Like,
yeah.
Is that in a way motivating?
No, it's a great sign. It's a great sign, and what he doesn't realize is he's just adding fuel to the fire. But he's trying to do anything he can to stop me. But it is cool that I am so on his radar that he feels threatened enough to care this much to try and sabotage my event.
Jake, the people want answers on the better ticket. What round are you ending the fight, Jake?
Man, I'm thinking it's going to be round 3. Get your better ticket. You can win $100,000. Stop playing.
Jake, you haven't heard about this
last night
meeting coming up at Anderson in a few hours?
No, not concerned.
That's it. We're done. Come. Thank you all.
Sorry, guys.
See you tomorrow, guys.
Hey guys, so Anderson Silva's here. Dr. Mike is still here. We are hoping to bring out Anderson Silva in a little while. It's going to be about 45 minutes for him. Anybody has any questions for H2O? Promising prospect on the card. Yes, we're going to get him back out after he does a block of remotes. He's got about 40 minutes of remotes to do, but we want to bring him back out.
In 40 minutes.
Yeah. What's your name? Josh. I'm Chris. Good to see you again, Josh. Who are you with?
ESPN.
Oh, yeah, I knew you were coming. That's cool. Sorry, I'm in your way.
Don't hurt your hands, bro. Don't hurt your hands. Don't hurt your knuckles on this.
Oh, yeah, it's 917 445 7467. Yes, sir. Thank you. So, are you ready for the Arizona Cup?
That's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. See if I can learn for the wings.